We're waiting for the stream to load, my friends. I just pressed the Let's Go Live button. We are testing, making sure the tubes are connected. We're waiting for locals to get connected. Looks like we are on over on the YouTubes. Hello, our YouTube friends. What is going on with locals? Of course, it's not working. 1 second, everybody. I just pressed the Let's Go Live button. We've got Garrett Ziegler's in the house. Super excited to talk to him, but we got to make sure the tubes are working first. And let's try this one again. Over on locals. All right, locals is now working. Locals, we had a problem, but we're back in business. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. So we've got a very special show today. We have an impromptu interview. Garrett Ziegler's in town. We were able to squeeze this in together, and so we're getting set up, and what is going to happen is we're going to fade to black right here, and I'm going to walk over behind this desk, and we're going to sit down and get mic'd up for the interview, but I'm here making sure that all the tubes are connected before we have a conversation. We've had a great previous conversation with Garrett, and we're super excited about it. So my friends, it looks like all of the tubes are connected, and so give me about 60 seconds, 2 minutes, and we'll be back with Garrett. Hang tight, my friends. All right, my friends, we're back. Woo! Okay, so we got it working, and we're super excited to be here today. Thank you for joining us. Another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. As you can tell, this is a little bit of a special treat. We have a new interview set up, and we have a very special guest here today, Garrett Ziegler.
Thank you very much.
Super.
And, I will say that for everybody at home, he's an autodidact, and so to set all this equipment up is not easy. People pay thousands of dollars to do it, and I'm on the other side of the mountain in this regard. So it takes a lot of courage to do what he's doing.
Well, Garrett, dude, we're so happy to have you here.
Yes, we have to go through the dossier.
We got to go through the dossier. So for those of you who are not familiar with Garrett Ziegler, I think you probably know him or know his work, but let me just give you a quick rundown. So Garrett Ziegler, Marco Polo USA.org. This is something that we've talked a ton about on our channel. This is the report on the Biden laptop. And in November of last year, 2022,
Yes.
we had a long conversation about this, and we went through it in great detail. And
More than anyone so far.
yeah, well, it's
Yes.
You're
an attorney, so that's why I'm like a kid in a candy store now.
well, the work that you've done has been just incredible. So
Thank you.
what I would love to do is kind of get everybody up to speed on the journey that you've been through to get here, because when we were speaking in 2022, there was not a lot of people, I mean, a lot of people were talking about it, but not to the extent that it's happening now.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like something happened.
It's been aided by Congress getting the majority, or the Republicans getting the majority in Congress.
So walk us through.
Yeah, so in fact, on the way here, I was on Twitter and I saw that my former boss, his trial has been set for September 5th. You talked about the journey. I was an aide to Peter Navarro for almost 2 years, 23 months. And, you know, he was a college professor for 30 years before he joined the Trump campaign in 2016. And so there were 4 people in his office. All of us were under 30. And we helped him with the election fraud reports, which was a slog because nobody else in the White House even believed there was election fraud. And so we worked on election fraud, but our main focus before the soft coup was on Chinese economic imperialism. which I think is probably one of the top 3 threats in the United States today. Beyond the southern border invasion, China hollowing out the U.S. economy, specifically the goods-producing section of our economy, not the knowledge-based, not software, but, well, they do steal software, but they also take our bread and butter away, out from under us, from logging to manufacturing, everything between. The Chinese have developed a different form of economics, a different economic system that threatens our global supremacy, not in a neocon military sense, but in an economic sense. And so what caught my eye, and the reason why I go into that, is because the Chi-Coms are verifiably in bed with the Biden family. This is not speculation, this is not hyperbole. This is why Hunter hasn't sued us for defamation. There are wire transfers, emails, audio recordings, text messages, video recordings of their dealings with people who have known associations with the CCP. And so the setting is this. I'm obsessed with the threat that the Chi-Coms pose to the United States. I realize that a device belonging to the U.S. president's son is brimming to the top with interactions with the CCP. And third in the equation is that nobody else out there is going to do a deep dive to the degree that I think needs to be done. So the device is over 200 gigabytes, and it's not just me. The group Marco Polo is consisted of a main core of guys, which is about a dozen. And then how you and I met is a woman named Alicia who lives in Tucson, and she is one of our dozens of volunteers, and she's phenomenal. She helps. In fact, just a shout out to Alicia.
Shout out.
There is a shell company that comes up all the time in the Biden crime syndicate dealings. It's called Rosemont Seneca Bohai. And that was the shell company that Devin Archer and Hunter Biden used to launder the Burisma funds through. So it didn't go right into Robert H. Biden at U.S. Bank. It went to Rosemont Seneca Bohai. Those bank records were made public in another trial involving Indian bond fraud, the Indian bond fraud. We talked about that in the first interview, I believe, where they basically sold junk bonds to Indians and stole $60 million from them. Devin Archer is going to go to prison over that fraud. The bank statements from Rosemont Seneca Bohai were made public. Alicia digitized all of them. We're talking over 36 months, line by line, going through Excel, typing in the exact date. Because why? Because a lot of people on the right are old codgers who think that they're really above getting their hands dirty. And that's basically our reason for being. We are the nerds on the right, or what the left wing will call far right, who actually do the work. That is what I'm most proud of. We went through all 128,000 emails, and I didn't mean for this to be a monologue, but the emails are online. Anybody with an internet connection and an IQ above room temperature can access the emails, the photos, and the text messages on the Biden laptop. Think about all this talk about the Biden laptop, and we're the only group to have actually done it because it took months of hard work. And so when I saw that you were going through the Sussman trial transcripts, I reached out to Alicia and I said, hey, you live up the road from this guy. You should reach out to him, and we should get on the show and the program and talk about our dossier, because your viewers, amongst everybody else, is focused on the details, which is rare. So that's my monologue. That's the backstory. I love Peter. I'm going to go to a day of his trial. What they're doing to him is despicable. He will be the first person, because it's a DC jury, in the history of the United States of America to be convicted for that crime. And be a U.S. advisor.
This is Peter Navarro.
Peter Navarro, yes. Yep. Bannon was convicted of that, but he was an outside advisor. Peter will be the first sitting presidential staff member to ever be convicted for this charge. Now, he's not guilty, and he'll probably win on appeal, even if the D.C. Circuit Court keeps the ruling from the district court. He'll win at SCOTUS because the law is just so clear on this.
And there was a ruling on that today, right?
Yes, sir.
This is the one that Peter Navarro was invoking, or saying that Trump invoked executive privilege, and then they found that he did not, so that case is going to move forward. It's
going to move forward. Trial starts September 5th. I'll be out there for a day or so with my former colleague. And again, Peter, and to a lesser extent me and Joanna Miller, his other staffer that is very close to me and Peter, we're one of the few people who actually believe what the president believes on trade and election fraud. All of us are being targeted, each in their own way. Peter to a greater extent, President Trump to the greatest extent. You've covered that almost more than anyone. And then we can talk about the lawsuits really from Hunter and Joey against me and Marco Polo, but they're doing it through their degenerate sugar daddy, Kevin Morris, who looks like the Geico caveman.
Yes.
So there's a lot of strings to pull. That was a monologue. I'll shut up.
No, there was a lot that happened. I mean, there has been so much. We were in November. We had the whistleblower come out. We had Gal Luft. We've had Congress. We've had reports of SARs, the SARs reports. I mean,
Yes.
the list goes on and on. But something you did mention was that, Hunter
Yes.
and his team, they have come after you guys.
Yes, it's been coming now for 4 months in late April or early April, but we got served in late April. They filed a lawsuit in the Superior Court of LA, which is just a lovely jurisdiction.
Yes, I'm
tongue
sure.
in cheek. We have Judge Epstein.
Great.
No relation.
No, of course
presume.
not. No, I know.
We have Judge Epstein in our case, and in 5 causes of action. There is 0 evidence for any of them. One of them is intentional infliction of emotional distress. Another is civil harassment. Again, I have never seen this person. Kevin Morris, his attorney, the guy who paid off Hunter's tax debt.
Yeah.
So everybody at home who thinks that maybe this is just this fast-talking, autistic 20-year-old, I'm neither autistic nor fast-talking, although it comes off that way. What I am is very committed, and they are so mad that not only have we not let up, but we have focused on the right thing. For instance, Kevin Morris pays Hunter's tax debt, pays his living expenses, flies Hunter to a child support hearing in a private jet to lower his payments. And that's what another thing is we're getting sued for is doxing. The penal code is 653.2, but guess what? There's no private right of action in California. He's using a criminal code to civilly sue me, and the law is very clear. The legislature did not intend for there to be a private right of action. So he's got nothing. They're basically just saying, this guy pisses us off. Go after him, make him find $100,000 to hire the best attorney in LA, and just harass him. So there's so many threads to pull on. That man, Kevin Morris, is arguing, his attorney in court with a straight face is arguing that the plane records of a private jet that transports the U.S. president's son around the country to his court hearing, to his child support hearing, is not of public importance. That's what they were saying.
Right.
So what do? We get a notification every time his plane gets in the air because we're smart and we figured out based on FAA records and the California Secretary of State records which plane is his. And so this plane is the plane that carries Hunter. And so we just started tweeting out, hey, here's Hunter. He's going from LA to New York.
Wow.
The plane took Hunter to his court appearance. It's absolutely of public importance.
Right.
He's saying that we're doxing him and we are threatening his safety. This is a 60-year-old man. Now, where I come from, there's usually this thing called honor, where a 60-year-old man, unless somebody has stolen your wife and killed your kids, you wouldn't in public admit that another male has intentionally inflicted emotional distress on you. That's usually something that you keep to yourself. But no, we are at the stage of imperial decline where somebody with tens of millions of dollars, armed guards, and gates to his homes is saying that a 28-year-old with $5,000 by name is intentionally inflicting emotion. And guess what? The court is now, they've yet to rule on our anti-SLAPP motion, and thank God for it, because California has the strongest anti-SLAPP statute. So we may get legal fees paid for.
Right, and for the audience, those are defenses against people who are suing you to stop you from public participation.
Exactly. Strategic lawsuit against public participation. Thank God for those anti-SLAPP statutes, because every cause of action that Morris and his cronies allege derives from a protected activity, i.e., I am telling the truth. There's not one thing in this dossier that's proven to be false. We have a $1,000 bounty. Anybody who is listening to this tonight and really wants to stick it to me, if you find an error in this report, we want to hear about it, because we don't want there to be any angle that the Bidens can come at us with. So,
well, let's pause on that for a
Yes.
minute. So you are facing the Bidens, right? So they're attacking you
Yes.
for just simply reporting.
$60 million.
That's what they're asking for?
Yes, for intentional infliction of emotional distress.
Okay, and this is a lawsuit that has been filed.
Yes.
You're defending it right now.
Yeah, we've already filed an anti-SLAPP motion, special motion to strike. That's the exact verbiage in their circuit. And it's in the Superior Court of LA, Santa Monica District, because that's where Kevin Morris resides. And he said I doxed him. And there's no private right of action, meaning the only way 653.2 is operative is if a DA in California brings it. There's no civil remedy to this. And again, it's protected activity. And by the way, the statute wording, I know this is in the weeds, but this is why I love your program. The wording requires malicious intent. And they can't prove malicious intent. If you go to California 653.2, you're not going to be, hold on, Sorry, I have to read this, man.
Let's do it. Yeah.
This is what you do every day. So, for every person who, with intent to place another person in reasonable fear for his or her safety, or the safety of another person's immediate family, by means of an electronic communications device and without consent of the other person, and for the purpose of imminently causing that other person unwanted physical contact, injury, or harassment, they have proof for none of that. I've never. You know why we posted the address of his many estates is for other researchers out there to get their handle on who is funding the U.S. First Family. There are very few topics in the United States more important than this. This guy is funding the corrupt second son of the chief executive of our government. Hunter's tax bill was paid by this man.
Yeah, millions.
So what did we do when
Millions.
these articles came out in May of 22? I said to my guys, all right, we need a complete digital colonoscopy on him. I want all his asset holdings, everything he's ever been involved with on the internet. If his name is on the internet, and his full name is Patrick Kevin Morris. So everything Patrick Kevin Morris is involved with, bar registration, schooling, who he's married to. His wife, by the way, is the lead agent at William Morris, the top talent agency in Hollywood. She reps Miley Cyrus and her family.
Okay.
He reps Matthew McConaughey. So the lawyer for Matthew McConaughey is suing me for $60 million. You know when Matthew McConaughey in June of 2022 was up at the dais at the podium at the White House saying we need more gun control? Kevin Morris facilitated that.
That's his lawyer.
Yep.
But they're doing this because this is so effective.
Yes,
okay,
and that's the background. Why the hell are they picking me?
Yeah.
Because they have no answer to this. We haven't focused on lies. We haven't focused on foot jobs. Foot jobs are 2 pages of this. Now, is the foot job egregious? Absolutely. It's a Mann Act violation. He shipped Joanna Rush from California to Hartford, Connecticut, drove her down to Manhattan. Clear Mann Act violation, moving women across state lines for the purposes of sex. That's what R. Kelly got prosecuted and convicted for, and Ghislaine Maxwell. Kenekoa did a great piece on that based on our report about R. Kelly, the black guy, going to the clink for decades based on what Hunter Biden did. We have not focused on that. All we did was list it. Our main focus in 75 pages of this dossier is on China alone. So the reason why Joey is all puckered up over us, and this is all from the top, by the way, Joey is definitely involved, is they have no answer to this because we have 5 suspicious activity reports, as you alluded to, from an insider at JP Morgan. Abbe Lowell, the well-heeled rat attorney for Hunter, wrote to the Inspector General of the Treasury Department asking me to be criminally investigated for how I got these suspicious activity reports that Congress used, without attribution, I might add, in a report.
Congress did?
Yes, I sent the unwatermarked. So in the very first time,
nice.
You made a hilarious joke. You're like, man, they watermarked this to hell, because I was so proud of it. We put our dolphin on the SARs because these SARs are nuts. We have the exact. Let me read a SAR for everybody at home. This is just one line. Anybody can go to Biden or well, first of all, there's a subdomain. But if you go to Marco Polo USA.org or Marco Polo 501c3.org, you can read these SARs in full. We redact nothing, not even their freaking account numbers.
And the full report is on there. And
yes.
And I just want to, can I just show it up? Can I just show it?
Copies.
So like my friends, this is a monster report. And if you flip through it, there are footnotes, there are details on everything. And
2,000 footnotes.
2,000 footnotes. Just looking at this document, it's hundreds of pages. It's 600 plus pages. It's got photos, it's got emails, it's got text messages, it's got diagrams. When I first saw it, I was like, I couldn't believe it, actually, that somebody created this.
I can't take credit for everything. All I did was write every word, but guess what? The team, I am so proud of them because the right embarrasses me all the time. The right writ large in the United States is one of selfishness and lack of humility. The reason why I'm such a big, I guess, fanboy, if you will, of your program is it's all grassroots. You did it yourself because nobody else was doing it. Nobody else was going through the transcripts live, and you highlight stuff and you bring it out and you use your experience as an attorney. I'm very passionate about this because I'm very passionate about your program because it had to be done. In the same vein, this would not exist if my group hadn't said, you know what, nobody else is doing the work.
Yeah.
And I appreciate one-off articles. An article here on a foot job, an article there on a bribe. Those are important. But this is in 30 years, the biographers of Joey, and Hunter for that matter, will appreciate this because they, like you and me, will appreciate the footnotes. They'll go through the footnotes. I spent more time on the footnotes than I did the narrative. This narrative, probably took me a day to write, and making sure I got all the footnotes in. Every single footnote has the exact same format. So the C, S-E-E in every single footnote, I had to make that italic. And when we did the third and fourth print, or the second and third printings, I had to correct a couple of them because they weren't italicized. And I'm anal about that. Yep. So that is the background. I was with Navarro. I loved the job. I realized that nobody else would do the work on this, to the degree that this device has never been had in American history. We'll never have this much primary source material. Think about maybe 30 emails leaking from a U.S. president's son about one business deal. We not only have business deals, we have coke deals, foot jobs, sex trafficking, money laundering, voice recordings. The amount of primary source material is out of this world, and no amount of paid propagandists. By the way, you talked about the January 6th show trials and show hearings probably more than any legal commentator in the United States, and I say that without flinching. Do you realize that the main investigator behind those January 6th sham hearings, named Denver Riggleman, a former failed GOP congressman from Richmond, Virginia, or Roanoke, Virginia, Middle Virginia, I should say, his district encompassed a lot. He is now working for Hunter Biden. Kevin Morris, the guy suing me for intentional infliction of emotional distress. Denver Riggleman, a paid shill who writes books on Bigfoot and who runs a failed distillery. He is now being paid as the forensics expert. And he gets mad at all these news outlets that have now started citing our email site. Like, they'll cite an email in exchange, and they'll link it to BidenLaptopEmails.com. First of all, it makes my heart sing. Second, because that's exactly what the purpose of it for. Yeah. For people like you who love primary source materials, it was a focus to get on the emails. Don't just quote them. Go to the email site because everybody can download the EML, so they get to see the metadata.
Right.
This guy, Denver Riggleman, is now being paid, I don't know, maybe even tens of thousands of dollars to go on programs and spread pure propaganda, not one item of this. And I know this passion is coming through my voice, but the level of evil is so diabolical. So they sued us. Now they're hiring former GOP congressmen who have Trump derangement syndrome, who like Bigfoot, to go on CNN and say, there's tons of chain of custody issues. Tons of chain of custody issues. Which chain of custody issues? Show me which part of this foot job video is hoaxed, Denver. I want to know which pixel came from the Russians. And it's so ridiculous that me and my buddies pass around this meme all the time of a psychiatrist talking to one of his patients. And we always put the face of one of our enemies as the patient, because and the meme is very simple. It says, "Are the Russians that you speak of in the room with us right now?"
Where did they touch you?
So yeah.
Where did they touch you on the doll?
Where did they touch you? Yeah. So Denver Riggleman, who by the way is a very, you are a very handsome guy. Denver Riggleman is an embarrassment. He's like 5'4" and fat. I mean, what I'm trying to say is these are not serious people. The founders would probably tar and feather him, Denver Riggleman. He's not even Abbe Lowell is a legitimate sophist. 2,000 years ago, if you were of means, you'd hire somebody in the sophistry school to teach your son how to con people via rhetoric. Abbe Lowell would be a great sophistry teacher. Lying beautifully, that's what he does for a living. Denver Riggleman's not even handsome, he can't even lie beautifully. So we're really dealing with the absolute scum. This is the scum that resides on the ring of the toilet bowl. That's what we're dealing with. And I can't be more passionate about this because in our country, there are two big issues, in my opinion. Election integrity, which you've covered almost more than anyone, and if your U.S. president is compromised. Because guess what? If your U.S. president is compromised, but you don't have election integrity, there is no way to rectify the situation. You are F-U-C-K-E-D. Pardon my French. But if you do have election integrity and your president is compromised, at least you can alleviate, you can get out of the situation. So I don't know a lot about election integrity. I haven't studied election laws. So after the coup, I was thinking, what can I do for the country that I am best suited for? And my OCD ways dug into this device, and I read all 128,000 emails. We went through all the photos. And for anybody at home, again, this is just a way, number one, for Joey not to be able to censor us, meaning Joey can't go to every single home and burn all 10,000 of these. And it's a way to support our nonprofit. But the actual research and everything we've done is free, online. So we're like the opposite of grifting. Right? Everything we did, BidenLaptopEmails.com, all free. BidenLaptopMedia.com, all free. So what I'm trying to say is that very few issues matter more than if your U.S. president's compromised. And all we've done for all the haters out there is put out how that is so. So if I say he's compromised, in the Western world, those people making accusations have to back it up with evidence. That's how usually argumentation works. That's like not even 1L. That's like first year freshman undergrad. But that's not where we're at right now as a society. So if I'm going to say that Hunter is corrupt and degenerate, it's not enough for me to say those things. I have to show him, don't worry, there's no genitalia. I have to show him butt naked with crack teeth over his genitalia with a picture of a SAR right next to him. So Leoa Alama Jordan is a woman featured in a suspicious activity report. We have selfies of the U.S. president's son butt naked in her bathrobe in a hotel off the side of the Pacific Coast Highway at the date that the SAR says he was with her. So when Denver Riggleman says, this is not forensically verifiable, dude, we have the metadata of the photos replete with latitude and longitude information and the SAR right beneath it. I'll stop talking. Channel might get bombed. He said the E word multiple times. Sorry about that.
The what
word? The E word. I don't know what the E word is.
I don't know what it is either.
I'm trying to think Biden related.
Oh,
the election maybe.
Oh, I think we can talk about election stuff. But I do want to ask about that because that's one of the most common criticisms that we get is that it's Hunter. This is just Hunter stuff. It's all Hunter. Joe Biden has nothing to do with it. He's just a crackhead. He had a drug problem, but now he's doing better, and Joe loves him also.
Yep, smartest man he knows.
Smartest man he knows, and he loves him. And how dare we
make fun of him
or post these pictures and stuff like that because it was from a tough time in his life, and he's actually a good person.
So what's the response to that?
Yeah.
So I don't know which lie of theirs to attack first. First of all, if Hunter was just a druggie and he didn't play the part of international businessman, because he's not really a businessman. This guy can't take an Excel sheet apart. Right. He did zero work. If Hunter didn't play the part of international businessman, I wouldn't have done this report. Our group wouldn't have been formed and we wouldn't have done the dossier. The reason why this matters is only because of who his daddy is. When Abbe Lowell was deposing me, one thing that has transpired since our first talk was the mother of Hunter Biden's child retained me as a witness in their child support case. That was another thing.
That's right.
So I was in court with Hunter Biden. The reason why Hunter Biden went to his child support case was because of yours truly. They filed a motion to file sanctions against me and hold me in contempt for just being involved. That's what they wanted. And the judge said, okay, well, we're going to have a hearing about this, but Hunter, you can't just do your lawyering through the mail. You actually got to show up this time. So for the first time in 3 years of paternity litigation, Hunter Biden scooted down to Independence County, Arkansas. And I don't know where to start. First of all, with that whole saga, the only reason, if this were just an F-up son with no business experience. Like, for instance, Amy Carter. Jimmy Carter had a degenerate daughter named Amy who got kicked out of Brown. Now, it wasn't officially kicked out, but they came to an agreement where Amy would not return for the next semester because she was smoking dope on Brown University campus. Guess what? There were like 3 articles about it, and everybody has since forgotten about it. Nobody can even remember it. That is the distinction here. You have Amy Carter, just a normal girl who smoked dope at Brown. Nobody harassed Jimmy. You know why? Because Jimmy had nothing to do with it. Contrast that. That's the stake in the ground. On the other side of the stake is a global FARA-violating conspiracy that is in half a dozen countries in the most despotic regimes that planet Earth can produce, where you have the sun who is smoking crack every 15 minutes, getting consulting contracts with corrupt foreign oligarchs in that regime who all have legal trouble and who want Hunter, the crack addict, who's playing international businessman with the nice tie, to go lobby his daddy and his daddy's administration to get them off of whatever legal predicament they're in. The comparison between Amy Carter and Hunter is not even close. He brought in millions of dollars from foreign entities, and that violates the FARA. And because it violates the Foreign Agent Registration Act, it's pure money laundering. As far as transfers directly to Joe, so number one, we have established communications between Hunter and Joe about Hunter's businesses in every form imaginable. Voicemails, text messages, emails, everything. They refer to him in multiple aliases. That news is just trickling out.
Right, and
it was all over our report.
You guys, so that's exactly right. I've seen Marco Polo, the logo. I'm sure you guys have seen it on Fox. You've seen it all over the place, right? Where they're actually pulling it and they're referencing your data. You were ahead of the curve on this. Long time ago, you were doing a deep dive on it, but it's really, I would imagine, just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what exists out there.
I agree.
And
it's just we just have one device.
One device, and that was kind of my question. Foreign banks, foreign companies, this is just his hard drive with a lot of the stuff that we have.
Yes.
Locally.
One of the last pages in our report, Hunter will disagree with this. This is the president's niece but one of the last pages of our report, it's in the endnotes section. Very quickly, I'll read it because I think the report is more articulate than me on the fly. As stated on our website, masthead, the mission of Marco Polo is to expose corruption and blackmail to drive an American renaissance. Accordingly, the Biden laptop was right for a thorough exposition. In fact, publishing material from the Biden laptop lessens any potential blackmailer's power, as the threat of disclosure is no longer in their arsenal. So by airing all of this stuff, we're actually taking ammunition away from people who could hold it over the Biden's head. Mm-hmm. Now, conversely, there is stuff out there not from his laptop that is probably equally or more damaging that they are probably still threatening them with. I always say Marco Polo has more knowledge of the Bidens than anybody in the Western world.
I believe that.
But you know who has more knowledge than us? The CHICOMs. Yeah. The CHICOMs dossier is more than 644 words. Some people are asking, where do we go to get this? Go to MarcoPoloUSA.org to read the full version for free. Read and look up the full version online before you purchase the physical copy, so you know exactly what you're getting. If I'm you sitting on the other side of the table, I want to do that. But going back to your original question, Joe is the chairman. Hunter called him the chairman. The business model is not easy but simple. It's simple in theory, but in practice, it's hard to. Something can both be simple and not easy. Sure. The steps are easy to understand, but hard to effectuate and to put into play. For a country, for example, like in the case of Romania, which the Congress was obsessed with, for a couple of weeks. In Romania, the task was to get a foreign oligarch, namely Gabriel Popoviciu, out of a jam. He was facing a 7-year prison sentence. So what did he do? He hired Hunter Biden and some attorneys at Boyce Schiller Flexner, one of the far left, absolutely evil organs of American legal system, to lobby the U.S. government, namely the sitting U.S. ambassador to Romania, Hans Klem. And their goal was for the U.S. government to strong-arm the Romanians. And this is Gabriel, evil-looking guy, of course. And this is Hans Klem. And so this isn't hypothetical. When I say, we have emails. No. Go to BuyLaptopEmails.com, type in the word Popoviciu, Popoviciu. Then you'll see, excuse me, Hunter talking to Michael Gottlieb, who, by the way, talking about elections, Michael Gottlieb was the attorney for Seth Rich's brother in their defamation case, Aaron Rich, and Michael Gottlieb is the attorney for Ruby Freeman. You think Ruby Freeman shelling out $1,200 an hour for Michael Gottlieb? No.
Right.
Those are left-wing activists paying the attorney's fees for Ruby Freeman. So what does this mean? This means that Hunter was business partners and committed FAR violations with Ruby Freeman's attorney. Hilariously. What I'm trying to say is these people, these few actors, are almost at every single nexus of big-time corruption. Michael Gottlieb in the past half-decade, and I challenge him to sue me. Michael Gottlieb in the past decade, after he was an Obama White House counsel official, has been at every single corrupt nexus in American political life. Everything from Seth Rich's death, which is the start of the Russia hoax, to Hunter Biden's FAR violating regime. So why do I bring up this email with Michael Gottlieb and Hunter? They are talking about where they're meeting Hans Klem. The subject of the email regarding meet with Hans Klem. Where are we meeting? Hunter, restaurant called Lapis on Columbia Road. And then he said, see you there. So you have the sitting U.S. ambassador to Romania meeting with people who are paid. By the way, Hunter, $230,000 at least went to him alone for the Romania deal.
This involves a U.S. ambassador too?
Yes, sitting U.S. ambassador Hans Klem. So what people are going to get from this report, and you can go on, go online and read it for free, is you can follow each and every URL in these footnotes and get more color. So when I say, Gottlieb facilitated a dinner with Hunter and Klem in D.C. to propagandize the U.S. ambassador about the misdeeds of the Romanian prosecutor Laura Kövesi. So guess what?
So Hunter's almost using other people like an ambassador.
Yes.
Rather than his dad.
Yes, in some cases. In some cases, Joey's directly involved, like in the case of getting Shokin fired.
Right.
If he's not fired, you're not getting the money.
Or the other text message where Hunter's sitting right next to him, hey, my dad is
Yes.
sitting here. If you don't get us paid, there's big problems for you.
Yes. It's contextualized based upon how much of the lemon he needs to squeeze. Meaning if he can get it done without invoking Joe, he'll get it done without invoking Joe, i.e. Hans Klem. But if it takes Joey, he's right there. And again, this is not speculation. You got to go to the emails, read these email exchanges. The human comedy has never been richer than what it is right now. This not only involves Hunter, Gabriel Popoviciu, the son of Boys, the founder, Chris Boys, his son, and Michael Gottlieb. This also involves Louis Freeh, the corrupt, one-eyed former head of the U of I, or the FBI. You know why Louis Freeh has one eye, by the way? We're one of the few groups to talk about this. Louis Freeh was drunk as a skunk in the broad daylight in a northeastern state, I believe it was Vermont or New Hampshire, at 2 p.m. and runs right into a tree. He almost dies because of blood loss. He has to get airlifted out of the forest, and guess who the first person to show up at his hospital bedside was? James freaking Comey.
Whoa.
So and the reason why he has one eye is because there were complications from that car wreck that made him only have one eye. So now he looks like even more of a gremlin.
And this is an ex-FBI agent or former
chief. Louis Freeh was a Southern District of New York judge and the former head of the FBI, working hand in glove with Hunter. Now, there's been a lot of speculation about Louis Freeh being one-eyed, and I know you mentioned Gal Luft in the topics to discuss. We don't have proof that it was Louis Freeh, but all available evidence points to him.
Yeah.
Now,
Luft mentioned that, right? The one-eye guy.
He did mention the one-eye that Hunter, and it fits perfectly with their MO. Part of what Gabriel Popoviciu was paying for, according to Luft, is inside intel about his case and about what the FBI is doing behind the scenes to lobby Popoviciu. I got into an argument with a shithead reporter at the New York Times called Ken Vogel, who said they weren't violating the FARA and the Romanian deal. And all I did was literally link the email from our email site. This is a direct FARA violation because he said to me they weren't lobbying U.S. officials, meaning to get a FARA violation, if Hunter were lobbying just Romanian officials about Gabriel Popoviciu, It wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been a felony. But it was because he was lobbying U.S. officials to take certain actions. That's why it was a FARA violation. Of course, Vogel didn't respond because these people are horrible human beings.
Well, and I feel like they want. Nothing's going to satisfy them.
Yes.
You can give them every single the whole laptop, 600 pages plus. You
Put
can send
jobs.
them the emails, everything, and they're just going to say,
Yeah. So, I mean, they want us to be in the room when Hunter solicits the prosecutor,
Right.
basically. So I can show you the text message. I can show you the Uber receipt. I can show you the Venmo transaction. I can show you the SAR. And they're saying, there's no evidence here. We not only have primary source evidence, we have multiple... Let's put it this way. When you go through on your show the affidavits that these feds write for probable cause to arrest a January 6th trespasser, our dossier is 20 times more detailed. All they have is a couple of screenshots. We have emails at the contemporaneous time proving the conspiracy. It's like juries in every judicial district across the nation have convicted and imprisoned people for less than this stuff. Less.
right.
Then emails don't lie. We can prove the validity based on the DKIM and other metadata. We can prove the validity of these emails. There's nothing forged about them. That's why not only and this is something that even WikiLeaks didn't do, and I'm proud of this, and that's why I'm not tooting my horn. I'm tooting Brian's horn, who created the site. BidenLaptopEmails.com allows individual users, you all who are watching this, to download the emails themselves. So let's say you don't like Apple Mail. You can open them in Thunderbird. You can open them in Outlook. You can open the emails in whatever email client you feel comfortable with and look at the properties and the metadata in the email. I'm not hiding anything. And that's what we love most. You know what I love more than anything is going on Twitter, searching our email site in the search bar and finding things that we didn't find. Now, I'll be sad if they find a crime that we didn't find, because that was my whole goal of going through all 128,000.
Right.
Meaning I couldn't follow every single rabbit trail if on the surface it didn't denote criminality. But there's also more rabbit trails to be found. And anybody who's watching this, it's nuts. They need to. I lost my train of thought because of a comment, but. Some of these, didn't MTG tweet out something like One-Eyed Willie? It was, we don't know who it is. It could be Free, it could be somebody else. We know that Gal Luft has limited motive to lie. So I'll shut up.
No, that's a great segue. So I wanted to ask you about so how many crimes did you assemble?
459 violations of state and federal laws and regs. So not every one of them is a felony, so there are a couple of misdemeanors, and not every one of them is a statute violation, like this clear-cut FARA violation. A couple of them are regulations. So that's why we say 459 violations of state and federal laws. For example, in the Indian bond fraud scheme, we got on 17 CFR 240, which is a securities regulation. So, there is... let's put it this way, that's a floor. If we had subpoenas and we were doing a real LEO investigation, we could probably get over 1,000. But just on open source intelligence with PIs, that's what we use basically to create this report as private investigators, which any law office would do with this kind of material, there's 459.
So what was your reaction when the DOJ was going to have him plead guilty to one?
Well, we wrote to the judge. I got Rudy Giuliani and Robert Costello to sign on to a letter that we drafted to Judge Noriega. And Judge Noriega did the right thing. She asked like 3 questions. It wasn't even a hard Socratic method, and they just wilted. And the bottom line up front in that is that Chris Clark wanted immunity. And for some reason, you know why I think...
Chris Clark, the lawyer, wanted immunity.
Chris Clark, the lawyer who has since quit.
Right.
Only Abbe Lowell is now the guy who wants me in prison. Abbe Lowell is his chief counsel now. Chris Clark wanted immunity. Noriega just asked in open court, are you under the understanding, have any promises been made to you? Which she's forced to ask. It's not forced, but the guidelines, the Criminal Rules of Civil Procedure, suggests that she asked that to any defendant, and Hunter said, yes, there is a promise
Yeah.
that they will not prosecute me for anything in the statement of facts. What screwed this whole thing up was they wanted to split the baby Solomon style. Instead of just putting everything in the plea agreement, instead of just pleading guilty, they wanted to have this side diversion agreement with the gun charge. That is what screwed it all up. And if they just would have done the corruption in broad daylight and said, you know what, Hunter's getting off scot-free because his daddy is the chief executive,
Right.
she would have signed it. But because there was a diversion agreement, and by the way, we're of the opinion that the diversion agreement is not in effect because there was a line for the signature of the probation officer, Margaret Bray. By the way, the only time Marco Polo has been quick on a transcript is that time.
And I read that on the thing. You guys had that so fast, man.
We paid $2.90 for that because we got it the day up.
Yeah.
And guess what? That woman, the probation officer, I emailed her that night looking for the booking photo because I wanted the booking photo on Hunter before they got one of Trump.
Right.
And she won't give it to me because I don't even think they booked him. I don't even think Hunter has a mugshot.
I think you're right. I don't think there is one.
Because they should have sent it to me. I cited the statute for that it's a judicial document. Federal law is a little bit different than each municipality, but there's a presumption of access for booking photos for federal defendants in some districts, especially District of Delaware. So Margaret Bray didn't get back to me. She's the probation officer. But back to that line on the diversion agreement, that isn't signed. So Hunter thinks it's in effect.
Yeah.
He got off scot-free with the gun charge. And what Hunter's attorneys are now arguing is that they have these two misdemeanor tax charges that were dismissed, and that they're either going to bring him in the Central District of California or the District of D.C. now that he's the special counsel. And Weiss was the absolute worst person on planet Earth to pick as the special counsel.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. Weiss, of course, was the person behind the botched plea deal, and he's getting criticized left and right. Do you know anything about him and Bo? I know that they work together.
They work together. We have no paper in the laptop linking them. That was one of the first things we did when he got it. Is search everything for Weiss you can.
Yeah.
In fact, we still have only found one photo of his wife online. It was a law school yearbook. And then there was a story that went mini viral last. Zero facts violations. There's a hater on here that says zero facts. So
they're out there,
zero facts is all these emails.
Yeah.
But a story went viral regarding David Weiss's father, who was a convicted bribe taker at the IRS. He was a corrupt tax collector, Meyer Weiss, at the University of Pennsylvania. And we just put that out there because nobody's talking about it. You have a literal crime family trying to prosecute another crime family in Delaware. David Weiss is an institution in Delaware, knows everyone. Why the hell he would be picked for this is beyond me, other than to corrupt. But you know what? Even worse than Weiss, we're zeroed in on this woman named Lesley Wolf,
Yes.
who you talked about a lot.
Yes.
We talked about that in our report. In fact, here's Lesley Wolf. She's a beautiful woman, being facetious. So this is Lesley Wolf. Lesley Paula Frieder Wolf, PA bar number 202068. So again, this is the subpoena that we got. That was posted online by the shop owner, but there's another subpoena that we got via the SAR, right? That bore Lesley Wolf's name. And
if you have not seen this, you have to get it. Just go over to Marco Polo USA. He's flipping through it right now. It's incredible.
Yeah. So Lesley Wolf, for everybody at home who's not followed the case, she was the day-to-day chief. She was the one signing the grand jury subpoenas and conducting the investigation. Page numbers. Thank you, Greg Wilson. This is on page 38. So Lesley Wolf didn't allow the IRS investigators to ask about the big guy. Didn't allow the investigators to interview Hunter's kids, who received payments from Chi-Com money through their father. Absolutely verified, because we have the wire transfer from the Chi-Coms, and then we have him paying Naomi Biden's Columbia tuition. Naomi Biden, I love to but just expose the facts. Naomi Biden's Columbia tuition was paid for by Chi-Com dirty money. It's absolutely verified. David Weiss's law school tuition paid for by bribe money. Absolute bribe money. It is in the statement of facts when Meyer appealed it to the U.S. tax court. They went through the statement of facts, or the finding of facts. The first couple of sentences, it's like Meyer paid for his children's educational funds with the bribe money. How is that? That story did go viral. I am proud of that because we utilized Ancestry.com and newspapers.com, and a volunteer on our team, Linda, did phenomenal work on that. That took us weeks to figure out. I mean, who is this guy, David Weiss? His daddy was in the clink. So page 38 goes into Lesley Wolf, but also important to Lesley Wolf is her husband. Her husband taught at the very school that Joey taught at. Joey Biden, the presidential practice professor, the Ben Franklin presidential practice professor at UPenn, taking $1 million in Chi-Com cash from UPenn, was colleagues with, this is page 39, I should have turned the page. Dr. Daniel Herman Wolf is a professor at Penn at the same time Joey was, taking huge amounts of Chi-Com cash, and she didn't recuse herself. So not only did they violate the recusal regulation, Penn, at the time of Joe's employment, stated that they didn't receive a foreign donation over $250,000 threshold. That is 20 USC 1011 FE. So every time you get a foreign donation above $250,000, all you have to do, you don't have to give it back, you just have to declare where it came from. That's all you got to do. You can't allow anonymity. So again, the National Legal and Policy Center, Paul Kamenar, did a good report on this in October of 2020. I got to give him credit because we cite his report here, because it goes into how Betsy DeVos and all of the Trump people, and again, I was a Trump staffer, didn't do anything with these clear federal violations. You look at this, guess what? The Chi-Coms didn't start getting the money until Joey became a professor there. So the timing's perfect. Like in a criminal indictment, Joey enters professorship at Penn, Chi-Com cash starts flowing.
It's amazing. Okay, so I know you've got a flight to catch at some point, so
Yes.
I want to make sure we're cognizant of time. But I wanted to ask you about...
I have at least 20 more minutes.
Awesome. I wanted to ask you about what you think is potentially still out there or still coming.
Yes.
Or, there's a lot of talk about right now.
I wrote notes down in my Telegram. Keep talking.
There's a lot of talk now about, Oversight Committee. They say they've got 5,400 emails with the redacted names. Robert L. Peters, Robert Ware,
Yes.
all of these things. And I think from the public's perspective, that's all new.
Yes.
Whoa, there's 5,400 emails also. And we heard Nancy Mace, we played the clip yesterday on the show,
Yes.
where she said there were probably $50 million out there, and she thought that there were 170 plus SARs or something that she saw when they
Yes.
reviewed Treasury. We had Greg Kelly, who's the journalist on Newsmax. He said yesterday that he's got audio, or there's some audio.
Can I talk about that first?
Please, yeah. Whatever you want to get into, but what's
Greg
there?
Kelly, I think, is alluding to something about a man I'm meeting with next week, namely Jill Biden's first husband.
Okay.
So I've connected with Jill Biden's first husband, and he has some stuff that is just insane. So I'm going out there and meeting with him, and I don't know exactly what audio. They haven't showed me the audio. All I know is that they've lied about the timeline. Joey had an affair with Jill while she was still married to Bill. Bill Stevenson, the first husband, ran a famous bar in Delaware called the Stone Balloon. And Joey, according to Bill Stevenson, crashed his car because when they were gallivanting, having an affair, Joey was actually driving Bill's car. So not only did Jill sleep with a man who wasn't her husband, she let that adulterer drive her husband's car, and Joe wrecked it. And then they lied and said Jill wrecked it. It is nuts. Now, that's just the taint. That stuff's been out since 2020. But what's even more is the other lies about, I think, Joey's other, let's call it, affairs that were occurring even before Joey had an affair with Jill. Like when he was still married to Nelia, I think Joey probably had affairs with before he even got into to the Senate. And again, I'm not the first person to say these things. People have always speculated about Joey's philandering. But I will say that Bill Stevenson, Jill's first husband, has been very, very good. He's been a wealth of information, and he knows that I will not air anything that doesn't have source material. So if there's no source material for it, we got to have a huge asterisk that says, this is an allegation. I can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the criminal standard. Funny, in text messages to my friend, Kevin Morris said, he admitted that he was going to file a SLAPP and said, you know what the beautiful thing is? In a civil case, all I have to do is get preponderance of the evidence. All I need to do is get a jury at 51%. That's literally in writing admitting to lawfare, saying, you know what? A jury in LA County is going to be so biased and so left-wing that I'm going to get 52% of them to go against Marco Polo and try to bankrupt all of you. That's how evil this guy is. But in the real world, in an honest world, I'm not Kevin Morris, and I realize that if I'm going to accuse somebody of a crime, I've got to have it beyond a reasonable doubt. I have the videos of Hunter Biden beyond a reasonable doubt committing these crimes. And that's just being honest. So I'll update you on how things go with Bill. It's an absolutely insane story about how him and Jill were together. And guess what? Bill actually held fundraisers for Joe Biden. So not only did Joe steal his wife from him, Bill actually opened up his bar and they held senatorial fundraisers for Joe when he was running. So that's how evil Joe is. He not only stole somebody's wife, he used that guy for cash and didn't even say sorry.
Yeah. And
then the IRS attacked Bill because he got mad at Joe. He started getting audited and he got prosecuted for not paying $8,900 in tax, while Hunter gets misdemeanors for like $8 million in undeclared income. So that's one of the topics I wanted to go into with Greg Kelly. As far as I can confirm this is a confirmation based on somebody who submitted the SARs to the Treasury from Morgan Stanley. So the SARs that Nancy Mace, Comer, and MTG are alluding to are from Morgan Stanley. And they're from a gentleman who's in our report named Brent Sheehan. I know the guy who filed the SARs, the bank officer. And there are I heard it was over 150, but if they say let's put it this way.
I could be wrong on the number. I could be wrong on the number.
No, by they, I simply mean Brent. I can state beyond a reasonable doubt that there are at least 150 SARs because I know and saw the information from the guy who filed them. What I don't have is the information in those. I have the 5 that were filed by JP Morgan, a different U.S. bank. Now, why the Congress isn't fighting to make these public is beyond me. They're just accepting the fact that they have to go to Treasury and a legal case in camera, view these things. They can't even take a notebook in. That was my first question to them. I said, well, can you write this stuff down in a notebook? And they said they can't. You know what I would do is if I'm a congressman, I'm taking out my camera and say, Treasury official, I want security to have to haul me out. I'm taking pictures of these things. Because it is nuts. And again, this isn't my allegation. This is a U.S. bank officer saying, this is suspicious. It is likely an illegal transaction. And because we have the laptop, we can look at what the SAR says and then see if the laptop corroborates that, which makes our evidence much stronger. Because it's not in... Abbe Lowell will say, because I always have the monkey at my shoulder of the permanent critic, Abbe Lowell will say, well, guess what? The bank officer, could be a big Trump guy and do this, in a biased way. Well, if we have other evidence from other sources, our guy at JP Morgan and the laptop are 2 totally different sets of evidence that have nothing to do with one another, and they both point to these pimps were paid by Hunter. So we know there are at least 150 SARs. Why they're not demanding to release them to the public is beyond me. I would do that if I were in Congress. All I can do is post the 5 that I have. So that was the SAR issue. I touched on the Greg Kelly issue, and I think there was one more.
The other one was the 5,400 emails with the names, and it's, I think, right in alignment with what you were saying. Why isn't Congress getting the SARs or releasing the SARs? Well, same thing with the emails from NARA.
This is MTG's tweet about the 5,400 figure is based on a lawsuit brought by an attorney who you'd really like, based in Georgia. She runs the Southeastern Legal Foundation. Her name is Kimberly Herman. And she filed this FOIA.
Shout out to Kimberly Herman.
Shout out to Kimberly Herman. She filed this FOIA in 2021, and she's just now suing them. And she searched. Her FOIA was for all emails in NARA's possession of Robert.L.Peters. Well, guess what? She sued them, and their answer was, we've found 5,400 potentially responsive Robert L. Peters hits. And guess what? For anybody watching at home, there will be stuff in that production. If they produce the 5,400, they might say it's national security related and not produce it. If they produce the 5,400, there will be many emails in there that are not in our report. Because guess what? There are a lot that Hunter didn't get sent. Now, Hunter got sent the Ukraine ones.
Yeah.
The call with Poroshenko. Oh, Hunter was CC'd on that one. Biden at rosemontsyndicate.com. But there will be other corrupt deals that Robert L. Peters was CC'd and sent to that are not on the laptop and thus not in our report that the public has a right to know about. We'll see what happens. But again, I wanted to say M2G got a little bit wrong in our tweet in that it wasn't Congress who's suing. It is the Southeastern Legal Foundation, and along with John Solomon, shout out to him.
Yeah.
And key in this, the biggest thing in my opinion that Solomon has done is he posted an interagency memo in November of 2015. Well, the memo happened in November of 2015, but he posted it a couple weeks ago, and he posted another memo in September of 2022 that shows that the U.S. government was approving of the job Victor Shokin was doing. They called his record impressive. They said, impressive record. So guess what? Joey and Dan Goldman and everybody else says, Joey was just doing U.S. policy. All the U.S. government, a whole of government wanted Shokin gone.
Right.
We have an interagency memo contemporaneous. And remember, the whole shakedown with Poroshenko and Joey on the phone was first week of December 2015. And that interagency memo came out in November. So guess what? What changed? Interagency says that the IMF loan guarantee should go forward because Shokin's doing a fine job. Joey, the next week, says, if he's not fired, you're not getting the $1 billion. Well, son of a, he got fired.
Right.
The only thing that changed is that Joey was briefed by Hunter through Vadim Pizarski in emails saying Shokin has to go. That's the only thing that changed. So we have the quid pro Joe. We have every step of it. We have the communications pressuring Hunter. We have Joe changing the official U.S. government position from the interagency memo. By the way, these are like 10 different agencies all signing off on the IMF loan guarantee.
Yeah.
Every single facet of Dan Goldman's, and I pick on Dan Goldman just because he's Joey's new little lapdog, one of his golden retrievers now.
The guy who bought his Congress seat.
Yes,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
Levi and Strauss Air, absolutely terrible human being. Dan Goldman, every single part of his lie can be refuted. Every aspect. From Joey never knew about Shokin, which we can prove now that he did through the laptop emails, meaning Vadim Pizarski, the advisor to Burisma's board, pressuring Devin Archer. And Devin Archer's testimony was really disappointing to Marco Polo because, number one, he got to set the ground rules of which questions they asked beforehand. Okay. You notice in the first page of that transcript, subject to the agreement we worked out. So his attorney, Matthew Schwartz, another corrupt attorney at Boyd Schiller Flexner, Matthew Schwartz, worked out with Republican lawyer staff which questions they could ask Devin Archer. I don't know what country they think they're in, but in America, a convicted white-collar criminal who's months away from the federal penitentiary does not get to set the terms of the agreement. In my world, if I'm a congressman, you're going there, you're answering the question, or you're pleading the fifth. There's no boundaries here. You either plead the fifth, and we get to ask whatever question we want, or period. There's no other. I don't know if these people just are they're lenient with their kids or they're wussies, but I don't know. In the founders, they would have tarred and feathered these people. Devin Archer is a sociopathic, handsome criminal. He is a felon. He committed multiple financial crimes, backdating, money laundering, FARA violations, 18 U.S.C. 951 violations, what they got Maria Butina on. Devin Archer was back-channeling with the Kazakh foreign minister with John Kerry. That new email that Fox came out with earlier this week with Devin Archer talking with John Kerry, that was in our report 10 months ago.
Yeah.
Devin Archer did so much back-channeling because John Kerry, stepson, was much closer with Devin Archer than he was Hunter. Chris Hines always knew that Hunter was a F-up and didn't really want to be in business with him, but he did because of the brand. Devin and Chris were much better friends, and they were buddies at Yale and everything else, much closer than Hunter. Hunter has been like a prostitute his whole life. Nobody really likes him except other corrupt people. He's not really charming like Devin. Devin's much more handsome. He's never brought into the fold. The only reason why Hunter's ever brought into the fold is because who his daddy is. He's not that impressive of a person. I think Bo and Joe, when he didn't have dementia, had at least 15 to 20 IQ points on Hunter. Even when Hunter's sober, his emails aren't really articulate or grammatically or punctually correct. He's just not an impressive soul. And again, the reason why he's in the room is because of who his daddy is. So, of course, Marco Polo is not interested in humiliating Hunter. What we're interested in is exposing the corruption of the sitting U.S. president. So I try to always bring that back to Joey because people wrongly believe that we're just about, poking fun at him. Oh, he's 52, don't make fun of him.
Well, what do you think about that? So Devin obviously spoke, oversight committees looking into things. Do you think there is a dam that's breaking, and what do you think the consequences of that are for the Bidens? Do you think the Bidens stick around for this election? Do you think that the dam's breaking or setting the stage to boot him?
I think the most valuable thing that the Congress has done has been to be a sounding board for the IRS whistleblower. Two of them. Gary Shapley I admire much more than Joseph Ziegler because Joseph Ziegler didn't technically come forward on his own accord. He was reached out to by the committees. But nevertheless, when it mattered, Joseph Ziegler did come forward. But Gary Shapley has been the most critical person in 2023. I would argue Marco Polo was the most critical entity in 2022 because we laid out the document. But in 2023, I just try to be sober about all things and be fair is fair. Gary Shapley brought forth the names, dates, figures. He brought who, what, when, where, why, and how. And I'm obsessed with that.
And I think he might have deviated the DOJ's plan to cover up the Hunter deal entirely.
I agree.
Like they may not have even offered a plea deal that may not have ended up in front of Judge Norica that might have made this whole thing just go away.
Yes.
And he spoke out. Then we covered it yesterday. There was a back and forth from the lawyers. We better start talking about this. Then the plea deal started to accelerate more quickly. And then I think after Judge Norica called him out, then they went back, can we plea deal again? And the DOJ had to backpedal and save face, and they had to increase the penalties, and they rejected it. And so arguably, this whole thing may not have ever come out to light if it wasn't for
Gary
Shapley.
You're absolutely right. No, what you just said is extremely insightful. And so I got to give Congress their due, as fair. They provided a venue and a safe haven for Shapley to come forward under whistleblower protections. I got to give you my friend's book, Brad Birkenfeld, largest whistleblower in U.S. history, blew the whistle on Swiss banking. He gave me a book to give to you.
Amazing.
So, and why do I bring Birkenfeld up now? Birkenfeld was instrumental in getting the statutes crafted that allowed Shapley to come forward. Shapley's attorney, one of them, Dean Zerby. Well, Dean Zerby's technically representing Joseph Ziegler, but they were both on the stand. Joseph Ziegler's attorney, Dean Zerby, was Brad Birkenfeld's lawyer, and he helped write the whistleblower statute. So the reason why Hunter's attorney's motions to nix, remember when the clerk at Latham tried to deceive the clerk? They deceived the freaking District of Delaware clerk. The reason why those records can be public in the first place, and there is protected taxpayer information in them. Well, it's not protected in the final analysis because of Brad Birkenfeld. He has been given over $100 million by the federal government, and he's one of Marco Polo's patrons. So guess what? In a weird way, federal whistleblower money is funding our research, which is gorgeous irony. It's delicious. It's so rich you can, bite into it like a hamburger. So Brad Birkenfeld helped with Gary Shapley. I don't know Gary Shapley from Adam. We've never spoken. That was one of Abbe Lowell's questions in the deposition. Mm-hmm. Why? Because they're trying to figure out where I get the SARs. How does London know me? Right? Do you know Gary Shapley? Yeah. Have you ever talked to Gary Shapley? No, I haven't. But Gary Shapley did the right thing at the right time. And what's even more important than Gary Shapley's testimony in front of Congress, and thank God they released those transcripts. You know who really came forward for us? Jason Smith.
Yes,
from Missouri. Almost more than Comer. He released the transcripts. Yeah. I really like that guy.
Yeah.
I don't, again, never spoken to him in my life. He had the balls
Yeah.
to release the transcripts, and I'm so proud of them for doing that.
Yeah.
But even more so than the transcripts were the exhibits they put into the record.
Yeah.
Shapley's contemporaneous emails back in October of 2022 proving he wasn't the leaker to the WAPO article. You know what I think happened? And again, this is speculation, not fact. I think Hunter's attorneys leaked the story in October of 2022 where they said federal agents have enough to charge Hunter Biden.
Really?
It would be a sociopathic and brilliant move on their part. The attorneys for Hunter leaked to the Washington Post that they have enough to charge Hunter, and then Hunter's attorneys give a statement to the Washington Post saying that if the federal agents leaked that, if they leaked the information, it was a federal felony. It's a sociopathic thing. So they say they're not the leakers, and in fact they are. And guess what? That gets the public's mind off of Hunter's crimes, and it puts the public's minds onto, we have these dirty feds leaking info on Hunter. Oh, Hunter's under scrutiny. Don't hurt little Hunter. These are sociopathic Alinsky-ite moves that only people who study their methods will understand. But I'm so grateful you brought that up, because that was an insight I was going to miss today, that the Congress gave Shapley the platform, and Shapley just told the truth. And now what we're doing and going forward, I got to head out.
Yeah.
But the thing that I'm working on right now, and I'm going to Texas to visit my best friend and a guy who's on the board of Marco Polo for his 30th. But after I get home, I'm about 75% done, but I'm going to send you these the moment they're done, because I would like you to talk about them on their show.
Yeah.
We are creating an agency by agency dope chart of every single human named in Shapley and Ziegler's testimony, with their picture, their government emails, and their position. So we'll have a complete PII on who the hell was involved in this investigation. So we have an entire chart for the IRS, 14 people named. I got everybody's picture but Christine Puglisi. I'll find her eventually. I'll probably have a PI go to her house. But anyways, IRS, we got IRS done. Then the next vision is going to be District of Delaware, all the prosecutors and corrupt line agents on that. And then we're going to have a DOJ, main DOJ. We tweeted out a picture of a very handsome man, again being facetious, of Stuart Goldberg with the dead tooth. Did you remember that? You see that on Twitter?
I don't think I did.
We tweeted it out that Stuart Goldberg was mentioned at least 5 times in Shapley's testimony, and he's like the guy at DOJ running the cover-up op. So why does this matter? Why am I excited about this? Because if I just see names in black lettering on white pages, they don't come to life. If I have their faces and we provide that transparency to the public, they will start seeing these things in action. Yes. So I expect those by the middle of September, we will have a dope chart. All the American public will have, for free, available for download, a dope chart of the date of birth, government email address, position, picture, full name of every single agent that we know of to this date involved in the Biden investigation. That's what our next project is. And hopefully I can do another show with you about that. And again, I fully recognize to your audience that maybe I talked too much today, but I just really had so much, and I'm so pumped we could get this in. But I got to call an Uber.
Not at all, brother. No, man, we're so grateful that you came by.
And I'm going to give you the book by Birkenfeld.
Well, dude, I appreciate that. This was a great conversation. I know it's super impromptu, and so
yes.
I know you've got a plane to catch.
Well, I got to get home to go. We're going to Texas, and there's only one flight out of Phoenix to St. Louis. So
we really appreciate it. Let me make sure that people know where to find you one more time. Marco
Polo, everything from our social media to buy a physical copy of the report, to read the report online for free, is marcopolo501c3.org.
And you're also on Twitter, you're on Telegram.
And True Social.
Garrett Ziegler, my friends. Marco Polo USA.
Thank you for doing this.
Brother, so awesome. My friends on YouTube and everywhere, locals, we are going to leave it there today. Garrett is going to get out of here. We're going to get him an Uber, and we're going to say our goodbyes. And so the Super Chats, my friends, we will catch up on those tomorrow. Thank you for sending those in. We really appreciate the support, but we'll get caught up on those. Garrett did us a super solid by being here, and so we're just grateful for his time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit here on this end, and then I'll take us out. My friends, I hope you have a very beautiful evening. The sweetest of dreams. We'll see you back here on the next one tomorrow morning. Make it a great night, my friends. Bye-bye.